Have you ever done something completely out of character in a moment of heartbreak, only to have it change your entire life? Today, I'm going to tell you the unforgettable true story of Claire Morgan, a woman who caught her boyfriend cheating, walked into a bar with tears streaming down her face, and kissed a mysterious stranger out of defiance and pain, only to discover he was Ethan Castellano, a self-made millionaire with secrets of his own, and that one impulsive kiss would ignite a connection neither of them could walk away from. The bass throbbed through the walls of the upscale bar, competing with the sound of Claire's heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. She stood frozen on the sidewalk outside, phone clutched in her trembling hand, staring at the photo that had just destroyed her world. Her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend now, wrapped around another woman in what was clearly not their first embrace. The timestamp read 20 minutes ago, posted by the woman herself, tagged with a location 3 blocks away. 3 blocks, he was 3 blocks away right now with her. Claire's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Not here. Not on this busy Friday night street where couples walked hand in hand and groups of friends laughed their way toward weekend adventures. She wouldn't give Jason the satisfaction of her public breakdown. But she also couldn't go home. Not to the apartment they'd shared for a year, not to his clothes in her closet and his toothbrush by her sink, and all the small intimacies that now felt like lies. So instead, Claire did something she'd never done before. She walked into the bar alone. The interior was all dark wood and ambient lighting, the kind of place that catered to professionals with expense accounts and tourists seeking sophistication. Claire had passed it 100 times on her way to the bookstore where she worked, always thinking it looked too expensive, too intimidating for someone like her. Tonight, she didn't care. She slid onto a leather bar stool, her sundress suddenly feeling too casual among the cocktail attire around her, and caught the bartender's attention. He was young, tattooed, with kind eyes that took in her blotchy face with practiced sympathy. "Rough night?" he asked gently. "The worst," Claire's voice came out hoarse. "Give me something strong, something that makes you forget." His smile was knowing. "I've got just the thing." While he mixed her drink, Claire pulled out her phone again. She shouldn't look. She knew she shouldn't look. But her fingers moved of their own accord, pulling up Jason's Instagram, scrolling through weeks of photos. Had he been with that woman in all of them? Had he been lying the entire time? "We should talk about moving in together," he'd said just last week. "Make it official, you know." And she'd been so happy, so foolishly, stupidly happy, thinking they were building a future. The bartender set down a cocktail the color of sunset. "First one's on me, you look like you need it." Claire tried to smile but failed. "That obvious?" "Let's just say I've seen that look before. Usually ends with someone doing something they'll either really regret or really not regret in the morning." He winked. "Try not to regret it too much." Claire took a long drink. The alcohol burned perfectly, warming her from the inside out, loosening the tight knot in her chest just slightly. She took another sip, then another, until half the glass was gone and the edges of the world had softened. Around her, the bar hummed with life. A group of women celebrating something at a corner table. Business people networking over expensive whiskey. And couples, so many couples, leaning close, sharing secrets, their intimacy like salt in Claire's wounds. "Another?" the bartender asked. Claire nodded. She'd regret this tomorrow, the hangover, the expense, the uncharacteristic recklessness. But right now, regret seemed like a problem for future Claire. As she sipped her second drink, slower this time, Claire felt someone settle onto the bar stool beside her. She didn't look up, didn't want to engage, but she was aware of him, a presence that somehow commanded attention without demanding it. "Whiskey neat," a voice said. Deep, smooth, with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. Claire glanced sideways despite herself. The man beside her was beautiful in a way that seemed almost unfair. Dark hair that looked artfully disheveled, a strong jaw with just enough stubble to be interesting, and eyes. Even in the dim bar lighting, she could see they were an unusual shade of green, like sea glass. He wore a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms, the top 2 buttons undone, revealing a hint of collarbone that Claire's traitorous mind found far too appealing. He caught her looking and smiled slightly. Not predatory, not presumptuous, just acknowledgement that they were two people sharing space in a crowded bar. "Rough night?" he asked, echoing the bartender's words but somehow making them sound more intimate. Claire let out a laugh that was more broken than amused. "You could say that." "Want to talk about it?" "Not particularly." Claire took another drink. "Want to hear a stranger's problems?" The corner of his mouth twitched. "Not particularly." They fell into comfortable silence, both nursing their drinks. Claire appreciated that he didn't push, didn't try to fill the quiet with meaningless small talk. In her peripheral vision, she could see him scrolling through his phone with a frown, his jaw tightening at whatever he was reading. His own rough night, apparently. Misery loved company. Claire was on her third drink, definitely past her limit when her phone buzzed. Jason's name lit up the screen with a text. "Where are you? We need to talk." The audacity. The absolute audacity of him to make demands, to act like he had any right to her time or her presence after what he'd done. Claire's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She could type out her hurt, her anger, demand explanations she'd never believe. Or... Her eyes slid to the stranger beside her. This beautiful, unknown man who was also having the worst night. An idea formed, reckless and wild and completely unlike her. Before rational thought could intervene, Claire turned on her bar stool to face him fully. "I need to ask you something completely insane." The stranger looked up from his phone, one eyebrow raised. "I'm listening." "My boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, just cheated on me, posted about it on social media like I don't even matter, and he's texting me right now like he has the right to an explanation for where I am." Claire's words came faster, fueled by alcohol and heartbreak. "I want to send him a message. A you don't own me message. A I'm doing just fine without you message." "Okay," the stranger said slowly, clearly not sure where this was going. Claire took a breath. "Will you kiss me?" The words hung in the air between them. The stranger's eyes widened slightly, the first crack in his composed exterior. "You want me to kiss you?" he repeated, as if making sure he'd heard correctly. "Yes, right here, right now. I'll take a photo, send it to him, and show him I've already moved on." Even as she said it, Claire couldn't believe the words were coming out of her mouth. She didn't do things like this. She was careful, responsible Claire who color-coded her calendar and always had a plan. But careful Claire had gotten her heart broken. Maybe it was time to try something different. The stranger studied her for a long moment, his green eyes searching her face. Claire expected him to refuse, to laugh, to make some excuse and move away from the crazy drunk girl. Instead, he said, "Are you sure?" Claire's heart hammered. "Are you seriously considering this?" "You asked." A slight smile played at his lips. "And as it happens, I'm having the kind of night where kissing a beautiful stranger sounds like exactly the right kind of terrible decision." "I'm not beautiful," Claire said automatically. "I'm a mess. I've been crying. My makeup is." "You're beautiful," the stranger interrupted firmly. "Heartbroken, definitely. A little drunk, probably, but beautiful." The certainty in his voice made Claire's breath catch. She looked at him, really looked, and saw that he meant it. This impossibly handsome stranger thought she was beautiful. "So," Claire's voice came out smaller than intended, "will you do it?" The stranger set down his whiskey and turned to face her fully. "I will, but not for a photo, not to make some asshole feel jealous." He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to something intimate. "If I kiss you, it's because I want to, because you deserve to be kissed by someone who sees you, not by someone performing for an audience." Claire's pulse jumped, but... "Is he worth it?" the stranger asked quietly. "This ex of yours, is he worth reducing yourself to a prop in a revenge plot?" The question hit like cold water. Claire looked down at her phone, at Jason's demanding text, at the photo that had destroyed her evening. Was he worth it? Worth compromising herself, worth staying angry, worth any more of her emotional energy? "No," Claire whispered, "he's not." "Then forget the photo." The stranger's hand came up to tilt her chin, his touch gentle. "But I'd still very much like to kiss you, if you want that too, not for revenge, just because." Claire's mind raced. This was crazy. She didn't even know his name. But looking into those sea-glass eyes, seeing genuine interest instead of pity, feeling seen for the first time in months, maybe years, she found herself nodding. "Yes," she breathed, "I want that." The stranger's smile was slow and devastating. "Good." He moved closer, one hand still at her chin while the other settled on her waist, steadying her on the bar stool. Claire's hands came up instinctively to rest on his chest, feeling the warmth of him through the thin shirt, the steady beat of his heart under her palm. "What's your name?" he asked, lips inches from hers. "Claire," she managed. "Claire," he repeated, and her name on his lips sounded like something precious. "I'm Ethan." "Nice to meet you, Ethan." "The pleasure," Ethan murmured, "is entirely mine." Then he kissed her. It was nothing like the perfunctory kisses Jason had given her in recent months. Distracted pecks before work, obligatory goodnight kisses that felt more like habit than desire. This kiss was present, Ethan's full attention focused on her, his mouth moving against hers with a perfect balance of gentleness and intensity that made Claire's head spin. She melted into him, her fingers curling in his shirt as she kissed him back with all the pent-up frustration and loneliness and need she'd been carrying. Ethan made a low sound in his throat and pulled her closer, deepening the kiss until Claire forgot where they were, forgot about Jason and heartbreak, and everything except the feeling of Ethan's lips on hers and his hand warm at her waist. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Claire's entire world had shifted on its axis. "Wow," she whispered. Ethan's eyes were dark, pupils blown wide. "Yeah, wow." Around them, the bar continued its Friday night rhythm, oblivious to the fact that Claire's universe had just been rewritten. She became aware of the bartender's knowing smile, of other patrons studiously not looking their way, of her phone buzzing insistently on the bar. Jason still texting, still demanding her attention. Claire picked up her phone and, without looking at the messages, powered it off completely. Then she turned back to Ethan, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Thank you," Claire said softly. "For what?" "For seeing me, for making me feel," she trailed off, not sure how to articulate the shift inside her. "Like you matter," Ethan finished gently. "Yes." Ethan's hand found hers on the bar, his fingers lacing through hers in a gesture that felt far too natural for two people who just met. "Claire, I don't know what that guy did or why he was stupid enough to lose you. But I know this. In the half hour I've been sitting here, you've been the most interesting thing in this entire bar. The way you look when you think no one's watching. The way you take your drinks, determined like you're trying to drown something but staying in control. The way you asked a complete stranger to kiss you with more bravery than most people show in a lifetime." Claire's throat tightened. "I don't feel brave, I feel reckless." "Sometimes they're the same thing," Ethan smiled. "Stay, have another drink with me, let's be reckless together for a while." Claire knew she should say no. Should go home, process her emotions responsibly, maybe call her best friend Natalie and cry on her shoulder. That's what sensible people did after breakups. But sensible Claire had trusted Jason, had ignored the red flags, had settled for being treated as an afterthought. Maybe it was time to stop being sensible. "Okay," Claire said, "one more drink." Ethan's smile was brilliant. He signaled the bartender, who appeared with a knowing grin. "Two more of whatever the lady's having," Ethan said. Then to Claire, "What are you drinking?" "I have no idea," Claire admitted. "Something strong that makes you forget." The bartender laughed. "It's called a fresh start," seemed appropriate. "Perfect," Ethan said. "Two fresh starts then." As they waited for their drinks, Ethan shifted his bar stool closer to hers, eliminating the space between them. His knee brushed against hers, and he didn't pull away. Claire found herself leaning into the contact, into the warmth of his presence. "So Claire who works up the courage to kiss strangers," Ethan began, his tone light but his eyes serious. Tell me something true, not about your ex or your heartbreak, something about you." Claire considered this. "I work at a bookstore, fiction section. I spend my days recommending books to people and secretly judging their taste." Ethan laughed, a real warm sound that made Claire's stomach flip. "Judging them how?" "If you ask for the latest celebrity memoir, I'm judging you. If you want something with explosions and minimal plot, I'm judging you. But if you ask for a book that will make you cry or think or see the world differently," Claire smiled, "then we're friends for life." "What's the last book that made you cry?" The question was so unexpectedly earnest that Claire answered honestly. "A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. I've read it 5 times, and I cry every single time." Ethan's eyes lit with recognition. "The Betty Smith novel, about the girl in Brooklyn trying to rise above her circumstances." Claire blinked. "You've read it." "My mother gave it to me when I was 13, said it would teach me about resilience and hope." Ethan's voice softened with memory. "She was right. I must have read it a dozen times growing up." "Most people have never even heard of it," Claire said, surprised and delighted. "Everyone always recommends To Kill a Mockingbird or The Catcher in the Rye, but A Tree Grows in Brooklyn is the one that really gets under your skin," Ethan finished. "The way Smith writes about poverty and ambition and family without being sentimental, it's brutal and beautiful." Claire stared at him. "Who are you?" Ethan's expression turned guarded for just a moment, something flickering in his eyes. Then he smiled, and it was back to easy charm. "Just a guy having a drink. Your turn. Tell me something else true." They talked for hours. Claire learned that Ethan had grown up in Brooklyn himself, the son of a single mother who'd worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat. That he'd put himself through college and business school on scholarships and stubbornness. That his mother had passed away 2 years ago, and he still called her number sometimes just to hear her voice on the old voicemail greeting. Ethan learned that Claire had wanted to be a writer but had convinced herself it was impractical, so she'd settled for being surrounded by other people's stories instead. That her father had left when she was 8, and she'd spent her childhood trying to be perfect enough to make him come back. That she'd chosen Jason because he'd seemed safe, stable, and she was tired of being alone, even though she was realizing she'd been alone the entire relationship. The bar emptied around them, last call came and went, but the bartender, who'd introduced himself as Marco, let them stay, refilling their water glasses and sneaking them French fries from the kitchen. "You two are too into your conversation to kick out," Marco said with a wink. "Besides, I'm a romantic. This is better than anything on TV." By the time they finally stumbled out into the early morning darkness, Claire felt like she'd known Ethan for years instead of hours. The air was cool and fresh after the warmth of the bar, and the city was that special kind of quiet that only existed in the hours between late night and early morning. "I should get home," Claire said, even though the last thing she wanted was to leave Ethan's presence. "Let me call you a car," Ethan said immediately. "It's late." "I don't even know where I'm going." The admission slipped out before Claire could stop it. "I can't go back to my apartment. It's his apartment, too. Was his apartment. I can't face all his stuff right now." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, "Come home with me." Claire's breath caught. "Ethan." "Not like that," he said quickly, holding up his hands. "I have a guest room. You can have complete privacy, a locked door, the whole place to yourself if you want. I just—" He ran a hand through his hair, looking uncertain for the first time all night. "I don't want you to be alone tonight, and selfishly, I'm not ready to say goodbye yet." Claire knew this was a terrible idea. Going home with a man she'd just met, no matter how incredible the conversation had been, was the kind of thing that ended badly in crime documentaries. But looking at Ethan's face, at the genuine concern in his eyes, Claire found she trusted him. Maybe it was the alcohol still warming her veins, or the emotional exhaustion making her judgment fuzzy. Or maybe it was that Ethan had seen her at her worst, crying and drunk and freshly heartbroken, and hadn't run away. "Okay," Claire said, "but I'm sleeping in my clothes and keeping my phone charged." Ethan's smile was relieved. "Whatever makes you comfortable. I'll stay on the opposite side of the apartment if that helps." "It does." A black car pulled up. Not a taxi, Claire noticed, but something that looked suspiciously like a private car service. Ethan opened the door for her with old-fashioned courtesy, and she slid into leather seats that were far nicer than any vehicle she'd ever been in. The driver greeted Ethan by name, "Good evening, Mr. Castellano," and pulled smoothly into traffic without being given an address. Claire filled that detail away, curious but too tired to question it. She must have dozed off because the next thing she knew, Ethan was gently shaking her shoulder. "Claire, we're here." Claire blinked awake and looked out the window, then blinked again. They were parked in front of a gleaming high-rise in what was unmistakably the most expensive neighborhood in the city. The kind of building with a doorman in a uniform and a lobby visible through glass doors that looked like something from a luxury hotel. "This is where you live?" Claire asked faintly. Something shuddered in Ethan's expression. "Yeah, is that a problem?" "No, Claire looked down at her rumpled sundress, her scuffed sandals. "I wasn't expecting." "Expecting what?" "This level of fancy," she gestured at the building. "I thought you'd have a normal apartment, maybe with a roommate and IKEA furniture." Ethan let out a surprised laugh. "Sorry to disappoint." "Not disappointed, intimidated." Claire looked at him directly. "Ethan, what do you do? And please don't say business like every mysterious man in a romance novel." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I run a real estate development company, commercial properties mostly, some residential." He paused. "I've been successful." The way he said successful made Claire think there was a lot more to the story. But before she could press, the driver opened her door and Ethan was offering his hand to help her out. The lobby was just as impressive as it had looked from outside. All marble and subtle lighting and abstract art that probably cost more than Claire's yearly salary. The doorman greeted Ethan with warm familiarity and a respectful nod to Claire. "Good evening, Mr. Castellano. Welcome home." "Thanks, Thomas. Quiet night." "Very quiet, sir. Just the way we like it." They rode an elevator in silence to the top floor. Of course it was the top floor. And when the doors opened, they opened directly into an apartment that made Claire's breath catch. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. The space was open and modern, all clean lines and expensive furnishings that somehow still managed to feel warm and lived in. Books overflowed from built-in shelves. Art that Claire suspected was original, not prints, hung on the walls. A grand piano sat by the windows, sheet music scattered across its surface. "Ethan," Claire breathed, "this is incredible." He shrugged, suddenly looking uncomfortable. "It's home. Can I get you something? Water, coffee, tea?" "Water would be great." While Ethan moved to the open kitchen, complete with gleaming appliances and marble countertops, Claire wandered to the windows. From this height, the city looked peaceful, almost magical. She could see for miles, all the way to the harbor where lights from boats bobbed on dark water. Here, Ethan appeared at her elbow with a glass of water and a soft throw blanket. "I thought you might be cold. The AC can be aggressive up here." Claire accepted both gratefully, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. It was cashmere, soft as a cloud, and probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. "The guest room is down that hall," Ethan said, pointing. "It has its own bathroom, fresh towels, toiletries, everything you should need. I put a t-shirt and some sweatpants on the bed if you want something more comfortable to sleep in." "You didn't have to do all that." "I wanted to." Ethan's eyes were soft in the dim lighting. "Claire, I know this night has been unexpected for both of us, but I want you to feel safe here. No pressure, no expectations, just a place to rest." Claire felt tears prick her eyes. From exhaustion, from alcohol wearing off, from the simple kindness of this near stranger who was treating her with more care than Jason had shown in months. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "Get some sleep. We can figure out tomorrow when it comes." Claire nodded and headed toward the guest room, but at the doorway she paused and looked back. Ethan stood by the windows, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the city lights. He looked lonely, she realized, surrounded by luxury but fundamentally alone. "Ethan." He turned, "Yeah. I'm glad I met you tonight. Even though the circumstances were terrible, I'm glad it was you sitting next to me at that bar." Ethan's smile was small but genuine. "Me too, Claire, me too." Claire woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and a moment of pure panic before memory returned. The bar, the kiss, Ethan. She sat up slowly, taking in the guest room that was nicer than any hotel she'd ever stayed in. The bed was enormous and comfortable. The sheets felt like silk, and someone, Ethan presumably, had left a tray on the bedside table with fresh fruit, pastries, and a note in elegant handwriting. "Didn't want to wake you. Help yourself to anything. I'm in the study working if you need me. E." Claire's stomach growled, reminding her she'd barely eaten the night before. She grabbed a croissant and bit into it, nearly moaning at how good it was, buttery and flaky and still slightly warm. After finishing breakfast, Claire ventured into the attached bathroom and stopped dead. It was all marble and glass, with a rainfall shower that looked like it belonged in a spa. She found luxury toiletries, the kind sold in department stores for shocking amounts of money, and fluffy towels stacked neatly on a warming rack. A warming rack for towels. What kind of life did Ethan lead? Claire showered quickly, using products that smelled like heaven and made her skin feel like silk. She found the t-shirt and sweatpants he'd mentioned. The shirt was soft and worn, with Brooklyn College faded across the front. She buried her nose in it briefly and caught Ethan's scent, something clean and woodsy and distinctly him. Dressed in his clothes, feeling oddly vulnerable and cared for, Claire went to find him. She found the study down a hallway lined with more bookshelves. The door was slightly ajar, and through it she could hear Ethan's voice, low and tense. "Don't care what she wants, Marcus. The deal is off the table, because I'm done being jerked around. No, listen to me. I built this company without her family's money, and I'll continue to build it without them." Claire froze. She shouldn't be listening to this. But something in Ethan's tone, hurt beneath the anger, kept her rooted. "Tell Andrea I hope she's happy with whatever poor bastard she's using now. Yeah, well, you can tell her I said that too. We're done. Completely, no, there's no salvaging this. She made her choice when she decided the company was more important than..." He broke off. "Just send me the contract revisions. I want this finished." Silence, then the sound of something being set down hard. A phone, maybe, or a fist on a desk. Claire knocked softly. "Ethan." The door opened immediately. Ethan stood there, frustration evident in every line of his body. Then his expression shifted as he took her in wearing his clothes, her damp hair falling around her shoulders. "Claire," he said, voice softening. "Good morning. Did you sleep okay?" "I did, thank you for," she gestured vaguely. "Everything, the room, the breakfast, the clothes, you didn't have to do all that." "I wanted to." Ethan stepped back, inviting her into the study. It was lined with more books. Clearly he was a reader like her, and a massive desk covered in papers and architectural drawings. "Coffee." "Please." They moved to the kitchen together, and Claire watched Ethan make coffee with the ease of long practice. He pulled down 2 mugs, added cream and sugar to hers without asking, somehow remembering from their conversation the night before. "I overheard part of your call," Claire admitted as they settled at the breakfast bar. "I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but..." "It's fine," Ethan's jaw tightened. "Just some business complications. My ex..." He stopped, laughed bitterly. "Apparently last night was a night for exes causing problems." "What happened?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee. Then, "Her name is Andrea. We dated for 2 years, were engaged for 6 months. I thought she loved me, but it turned out she loved the idea of merging her family's real estate empire with mine." He looked up, eyes hard. "When I refused to sign a contract that would have essentially given her family controlling interest in my company, she ended it. Called off the wedding, kept the ring, and has spent the last 3 months trying to sabotage my deals out of spite. Claire's heart ached for him. I'm so sorry. Don't be, I dodged a bullet. But his voice said otherwise, said he was still hurt, still processing the betrayal. Is that why you were at the bar alone last night? Claire asked gently. Ethan nodded. She just tanked another deal. Cost me about $3 million with one phone call to a mutual contact. I needed a drink and to be somewhere I wouldn't run into anyone who knows me, who knows her, who would want to talk about it. And then a crying mess of a woman sat down next to you and asked you to kiss her. The best thing that could have happened, Ethan said firmly. Claire, you were the only good part of last night, hell of the last 3 months. The intensity in his gaze made Claire's breath catch. You don't even know me. I know enough. Ethan reached across the counter and took her hand. I know you're brave enough to walk away from something that's hurting you. I know you love books and can quote entire passages from memory. I know you have a sister you adore and a best friend named Natalie who you're probably going to call as soon as you leave here. I know you take your coffee sweet and your heartbreak with dignity. He paused. And I know I haven't been able to stop thinking about kissing you since the moment I did it. Claire's heart hammered. Ethan, have dinner with me, tonight. A proper date, not 2 drunk people commiserating in a bar. Let me take you somewhere nice and prove that last night wasn't just, he trailed off. Prove it wasn't just a moment. Claire knew she should say no. Should go home, process the breakup with Jason, give herself time before jumping into anything new. But looking at Ethan, at this successful, handsome, unexpectedly kind man who'd given her shelter and made her feel seen, she couldn't find it in herself to be sensible. Yes, Claire said, I'd like that. Ethan's smile was brilliant and relieved. Yeah. Yeah, but Ethan, I need to be honest with you. I just got out of a relationship, a bad one that I stayed in too long. I'm kind of a mess right now, emotionally speaking. I don't know if I'm ready for... Then we'll go slow, Ethan interrupted gently. No pressure, no expectations. Just 2 people getting to know each other and seeing where it goes. If all we ever are is friends who kissed once in a bar, I'll consider myself lucky to know you. Friends who kissed once sounds nice, Claire said softly. Though I have to warn you, I'm a terrible friend. I forget birthdays and I'm always late and I have this habit of recommending books you'll hate. I'm a terrible friend too, Ethan assured her. I work too much and I'm annoyingly competitive at board games and I have strong opinions about pizza toppings that I will defend aggressively. Claire laughed, a real genuine laugh that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. What's your pizza opinion? Pineapple is amazing, and anyone who disagrees is wrong. Oh God, you're one of those people. Fight me. I might have to. That's a deal-breaker level opinion right there. They grinned at each other, the easy banter covering something deeper. Recognition, maybe, or possibility. The sense that this unexpected connection might become something neither of them had planned for but both desperately needed. I should probably go home, Claire said reluctantly. Face reality, deal with Jason's stuff, call Natalie and tell her I'm not dead in a ditch somewhere. Let me drive you, Ethan offered immediately. You don't have to. I want to. His hand tightened on hers. And besides, I need your address for tonight anyway. I can't pick you up if I don't know where you live. Always practical, Claire teased. One of my few virtues. The drive to Claire's apartment was quiet but comfortable. She sat in the passenger seat of Ethan's car, a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than Claire would make in 5 years, and watched the city slide past the windows. When they pulled up to her building, modest and slightly shabby compared to Ethan's gleaming high-rise, Claire felt a flutter of embarrassment. But Ethan just smiled and said, "This is a great neighborhood, good coffee shops." You're being nice. I'm being honest. I used to live 3 blocks from here when I was starting out. Best bagels in the city are at the corner deli. Claire looked at him with new appreciation. You really did start from nothing, didn't you? My mom worked herself to the bone to give me opportunities. I wasn't going to waste them. Ethan's voice was fierce with old determination. Every building I develop, every deal I close, it's for her, to prove her sacrifices mattered. She'd be proud of you, Claire said softly. I hope so. Ethan's eyes were distant for a moment, then focused back on her. 7 o'clock tonight. 7 is perfect. Ethan got out and came around to open her door, such an old-fashioned gesture that it made Claire's heart flutter. As she stood, he caught her hand, pulling her slightly closer. Claire, he said quietly, whatever happens with us, whether this turns into something or stays just one perfect night, I want you to know something. You deserve better than how that guy treated you. You deserve someone who shows up, who sees you, who makes you a priority. Don't settle for less. Tears pricked Claire's eyes. You barely know me, but you see me better than Jason did in 2 years. Then he was an idiot. Ethan lifted her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles, echoing that first kiss at the bar. See you tonight. Claire floated up to her apartment, feeling like she was living in a dream. But reality crashed back the moment she opened her door. Jason sat on her couch, their couch, looking rumpled and angry. Where the hell have you been? He demanded. I've been calling you all night. Claire's brief happiness evaporated. What are you doing here? I live here, remember. We need to talk about last night. No, Claire interrupted, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. We don't. I saw the photo, Jason, you with her. So whatever excuse you've prepared, whatever justification you think makes it okay, I don't want to hear it. Jason had the grace to look uncomfortable. It's not what it looked like. Really, because it looked like you were cheating on me while I waited for you at home like an idiot. Claire moved to the closet and started pulling down a duffel bag. Here, what's going to happen. I'm giving you 1 week to get your stuff out of my apartment. Anything left after that, I'm donating. Claire, come on. 1 week, Jason, and then I never want to see you again. She expected him to argue, to plead, to try the charm that had worked on her so many times before. But instead, Jason's face hardened into something ugly. This is about that guy, isn't it? The one from last night. Claire froze. What? Jason held up his phone, showing a photo that made Claire's stomach drop. It was her and Ethan, kissing at the bar, captured by someone's camera phone and apparently sent to Jason. Some friend saw you and thought I should know my girlfriend was making out with random guys in bars. Jason's voice was acid. So much for the heartbroken victim act. You already had someone lined up. I didn't, he wasn't. Claire stopped, drew herself up. You know what? It doesn't matter. You don't get to make me feel guilty for moving on when you've been cheating for who knows how long. We're done, Jason. Get out. This is my apartment, too. Actually, it's not. The lease is in my name. You just never bothered to get added. Claire smiled without humor. 1 week, then I'm changing the locks. Jason stared at her like he'd never seen her before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe the Claire who stood up for herself, who didn't apologize for taking up space, was new to both of them. You're really doing this? Jason asked quietly. I really am. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. But before leaving, he turned back one last time. You're going to regret this. That guy, whatever he told you, whatever fantasy you're living, it won't last. And when it doesn't, don't come crying back to me. I won't, Claire promised. Goodbye, Jason. The door slammed behind him, and for the first time in 2 years, Claire felt like she could breathe. Claire spent the afternoon with Natalie, who'd rushed over the moment Claire called. Her best friend listened to the entire story, Jason's cheating, the bar, the kiss, Ethan's apartment, with escalating exclamations of shock and delight. Let me get this straight, Natalie said, pacing Claire's living room with the energy of a lawyer building a case. You kissed a random stranger to make yourself feel better, and he turned out to be a rich, handsome gentleman who took you home, gave you the guest room, and asked you on a proper date. When you put it like that, it sounds like a fairy tale, Claire admitted. Because it is, Claire, this is literally every romance novel plot ever. Meet cute at a bar, billionaire with a heart of gold, sweeping you off your feet. Natalie stopped. Wait, you said his name is Ethan Castellano. Yeah, why? Natalie was already pulling up her phone, typing frantically. Oh my God! Oh my God, Claire! She shoved the phone into Claire's face. Claire found herself looking at a professional photo of Ethan, more polished than the rumpled version she'd met, but unmistakably him, under the headline, Ethan Castellano, 32, self-made real estate mogul worth estimated $200 million. Claire's stomach dropped. 200 million. Million, Natalie shrieked. Claire, you kissed a man worth $200 million. You stayed at a millionaire's penthouse. You're going on a date with. A person, Claire interrupted firmly, even though her heart was racing. He's just a person, Nat, a person who was having a bad night, same as me. A person who could buy this entire building with his pocket change, Natalie pointed out. Claire, do you understand what this means? This could be a nice date with someone I genuinely liked, Claire said. Or it could be nothing. Either way, I'm not going to treat him differently just because I know how much money he has. Natalie studied her for a long moment, then smiled. You really like him. I barely know him. But you like him. Claire sighed. Yeah, I really do. Then wear the blue dress, Natalie commanded. The one that makes you look like a goddess. And Claire, her voice softened. You deserve this. After everything with Jason, after settling for so long, you deserve someone who sees you, even if he is ridiculously, impossibly, unfairly wealthy. At precisely 7 o'clock, Claire's intercom buzzed. She opened the door to find Ethan standing in the hallway in a dark gray suit that emphasized his broad shoulders, holding a bouquet of peonies, her favorite flower, though she couldn't remember telling him that. How did you know? She asked, accepting the flowers. You have a tattoo of one on your wrist, Ethan said, gesturing to the small peony inked on her left wrist, barely visible, easy to miss. I noticed last night and took a guess. The fact that he'd paid such close attention made Claire's heart squeeze. They're beautiful, thank you. As she put them in water, Ethan waited patiently, and when she emerged with her purse, his smile was warm and appreciative. You look incredible. You're not so bad yourself, Claire said, but her voice came out breathier than intended. Because Ethan in casual clothes had been attractive, but Ethan in a perfectly tailored suit was devastating. The restaurant he took her to was intimate and elegant, the kind of place with cloth napkins and waiters who knew Ethan by name. They were shown to a private corner table with candles and a view of the city lights. Is this okay? Ethan asked after they'd ordered. I realized after I made the reservation that you might think I'm showing off, but I just wanted somewhere we could talk without. It's perfect, Claire assured him, though I have to admit I Googled you this afternoon. Ethan's expression turned guarded. Ah. $200 million, Ethan. That's not I've been successful, I'm one of the wealthiest people in the city. Does it change things? Ethan's voice was carefully neutral. Now that you know. Claire considered this. Honestly, it's intimidating. I work in a bookstore and live paycheck to paycheck. We're from completely different worlds. But, she reached across the table and took his hand. It doesn't change that I like you. The you I met last night who quoted Betty Smith and made me feel seen, that person doesn't have a price tag. Ethan's relief was palpable. I was worried you'd look at me differently. I do look at you differently, Claire admitted. I'm wondering why someone with your money and success was sitting alone in a bar having the worst night of his life. Shouldn't you be on a yacht somewhere surrounded by models? Ethan laughed, the tension breaking. That's not really my style, and as for why I was alone, his smile faded. Money doesn't protect you from heartbreak, Claire. Andrea didn't care about the money. Her family has plenty. She wanted control, power, influence. When I wouldn't give her that, I stopped being useful. That must have hurt, Claire said softly. It did, but you know what hurt more? Realizing she never actually saw me. She saw Ethan Castellano, the brand, the company, the asset. But me, the guy who still shops at the same corner store he did in college, who calls his mom's old number when he's sad, who reads romance novels and cries at the endings. Ethan shook his head. She never knew that person. I want to know that person, Claire said. The real you, not the headlines. Ethan's eyes were intense in the candlelight. Then ask me anything. No filters, no pretense, just two people being honest. So they talked, about childhoods and dreams, failures and regrets. Ethan told her about buying his first property with money scraped together from 3 jobs, about the terror and exhilaration of success, about the loneliness of realizing most people wanted things from him rather than wanting him. Claire told him about her father leaving, about the bookstore she dreamed of opening someday, about how she'd stayed with Jason because being with someone, even the wrong someone, felt safer than being alone. "You won't be alone," Ethan said firmly. "Not if I have anything to say about it." "We barely know each other," Claire pointed out, but her protest was weak. "Then let's fix that." Ethan pulled out his phone, opened his calendar. "I want to see you again. Tomorrow, the next day, every day you'll let me. I want breakfast dates and late-night conversations and lazy Sundays reading together. I want to introduce you to my favorite places and learn about yours. I want—" He stopped, jaw tightening. "I want to do this right, Claire. Give us a real chance." Claire's heart raced. This was fast, too fast, probably. But looking at Ethan's face, seeing the hope and vulnerability there, she found she didn't care about speed or sense. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's do this. Let's see where this goes." Ethan's smile was brilliant. He lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles, the gesture already familiar and cherished. "Thank you for taking a chance on me." "Thank you for stopping," Claire said. "For seeing me when I was at my worst and staying anyway. Claire, you could never be anything less than extraordinary to me." And when he kissed her goodnight at her door hours later, soft and slow and full of promise, Claire felt like maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The kiss that had started as revenge against heartbreak had become the beginning of something real. And as Claire watched Ethan walk away with a promise to call her tomorrow, she realized she'd never been less interested in revenge and more interested in the future. A future that, impossibly and wonderfully, might just include the billionaire stranger who'd seen her, chosen her, and made her believe in second chances.